Hello everyone and welcome to the University of Arts London College of Fashion 2025 Fashion Business School postgraduate podcast sessions. These series of panel discussions have been driven and influenced by the exciting and topical fashion industry related subjects researched and delivered by our postgraduate master's programme students for their final major projects. They cover current and relevant themes shaping the wider fashion industry, such as global supply chains and policies, psychology in fashion, online environments and inclusivity, and the use of AI. We hope that you enjoy these sessions and thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to this podcast. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Olga Cieslak and I am a lecturer in fashion marketing and sustainability here at LCF. With me today, I have two lovely fresh graduates from two different, but what's commonality is the sustainability MA programs. So I have Laura and Natalie. Love to hear a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, Olga. Thank you for having us here. My name is Laura. I studied the MA in Fashion Marketing and Sustainability, and my research was about sustainable consumption and how communication can boost sustainable consumption, but not communication from brands, but from circular ecosystems. It's kind of
interesting. I love that. Okay, we'll unpack that a little bit more. But first, I would love to also introduce Natalie.
Hi, Olga. So obviously my name is Natalie and I'm on the MA Fashion Design Management course. I just finished a couple weeks ago. It was very intense, but I loved every minute of it, to be honest. And for my project, I looked into how the design management process is adapted when you upcycle post-consumer fashion waste. And I know that there's been a lot of research ongoing into upcycling at the moment, but it's still a very niche topic. And looking into how brands upcycle fashion in specific rather than dead stock fabrics was a very different, how do I put it, experience. But yeah, we'll unpack that together in a second, like you said.
Yay, fantastic. Thank you. I'm hearing so much commonality already in terms of driving sustainability, driving circularity, but from two different perspectives. And I love that multi perspective approach to sustainability because from my work, I see that there is no one way to do sustainability, especially in the fashion industry that's so multi-layered. So why don't we start with you, Laura, and just touch a little bit about what sort of inspired that research project in the first place, and then maybe thinking about how did that develop over time, and what were the sort of key findings? What did you leave with?
Well, I'm really worried about the amount of solid waste we generate as consumers, not only textile waste, but in general. This is a systemic issue. And in the research field is more focused on how the industry is transitioning to a more sustainable industry. But from the consumer side, we have an issue rooted in the throwaway culture. So from a marketing perspective, it is really important to understand how can we get consumers on board. And also this phenomenon is happening in Colombia, where I looked at a multi-stakeholder perspective because I interview participants from organizations that collaborate together in a circular ecosystem, and also consumers with pro-circular mindsets. So that was my inspiration.
Really interesting. And again, I think there is too much research being done on the Western sort of perspective, and it's lovely to hear that you're bringing that, the South, global South perspective, to this conversation. But you mentioned something really interesting, that you were looking at the communications not towards the consumer or from the consumer as such, but from the sort of circular initiatives. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, the research says that circularity, like a successful implementation of circular models, comes from collaborative structures rather than individual or brands' efforts. So when I was like looking for my topic, I read a lot about this phenomenon in Colombia, and I found out that actually that's happening there, and they are figuring out how to stop. Like first, like the priority now is how to stop textiles to end up landfill. But they are like public, private, academia working together. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. We'll come back and discuss more on your research, but I wanted to just jump into Natalie's research as well. And just sort of similar question to you in terms of how did you arrive at that topic? What was the sort of initial prompt, and where did you sort of end up?
So initially, when I was applying for my course, we had to provide, obviously, a project idea for our master's project. And I, at the time, was interested in upcycling in specific, but I didn't have an idea of what kind of upcycling, because there are various forms of upcycling out there. But once we started doing our research in May, on our master's project and research proposal, I came across, obviously, the different types and kind of steered towards fashion waste in specific. I mean, the amount of waste we produce and that is not recycled is absolutely insane. And I love that our projects kind of intertwine together, because I also looked into the circular economy and the circular business models that are out there. And upcycling is a form of circular business model. But the way it's done needs to be done really well in order for it to have a positive impact and be efficient. And I've come to find a lot of things throughout my research that has shed light on what needs improving in order for an upcycling business model that works with fashion waste to actually be optimal.
Yeah. Good that you mentioned what needs to be done, or the challenges, because that was sort of my next question to both of you. So maybe we just continue with you, Natalie, on that note. Were there any challenges that you've encountered, both theoretically and then into when you were out in the field collecting data, speaking to people during this project? What were the sort of main challenges of upcycling in this case?
So I think I'll focus on doing the research in specific, because my research was UK based. It was actually very challenging to find people to interview, simply because upcycling is still very niche, but at the same time, businesses who upcycle fashion waste in specific is even more niche, because it's not a standard process, essentially. And I came across a couple of businesses, but because they're so small and they don't have enough people in the team, they're so busy all the time, and it's really hard to reach them. And simply just finding people to interview was a challenge in itself. But once I was able to reach out to those people and connect with them, it was a lot easier to get, all the information I needed and put it all together. But it did take a while. But I've come to find that they themselves are still very much struggling and still learning and adapting, and that it's a very iterative process, even for businesses who have been in place for 5 or 6 years or even more. But I did come across one participant who does have a standardized process, and I was able to compare their results from their interviews with other participants, which helped me put together a process in my final chapter of how the design management process is adapted when we upcycle fashion waste. And there's a lot of steps to it, let's say. But I was really focused on ensuring and trying to figure out how can we make it circular, because the circular economy plays a big role in developing the fashion industry towards sustainability. Now, I don't really like to use the word sustainability because I feel like it's so broad. Like, what is sustainability? It means so many things, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's more to do with how can we make the fashion industry circular. So all the way from the design idea to selling it, and then what happens if it doesn't get sold. I mean, we know that brands, without mentioning any names, are basically either burning their garments so they don't get resold, or they're sending them to landfill.
Yeah.
But what happens to them in the landfill if they're made of, synthetics, and they don't decompose basically, and they stay there and they damage the environment. So by looking into how we can transform fashion waste and reuse it, I've come to realize that businesses tend to use fabrics that will last, which means that it's not fabrics that are made of fast fashion garments. So what happens to those fast fashion garments then? We're not really addressing the issue, are we? So that's, I think, a challenge that we need to be addressing. And a lot of businesses tend to upcycle denim in specific because it lasts longer. But they tend to avoid stretchy denim because it doesn't. So what do we do with the stretchy denim? I mean, I think obviously my research is just a drop in the ocean, and it requires still a lot more research. But yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really vital drop.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. It's really... Sorry, go for it.
No, amazed. I wanna read you this information.
Yeah, you have to send it through, disseminate.
No, I will.
Sounds
for
fascinating.
Sure. I will for sure. But yeah, I mean, it was just really interesting. I feel like I could talk on forever about it. But the main thing I want to say is that when we upcycle, and brands upcycle, businesses upcycle, they have two different processes, but they all end up, obviously at the same endpoint, selling it. But it either starts with the materials source, so they design based on what they find, which is a huge amount of garments. But that huge amount of garments, it doesn't mean that they're going to find the same garment twice. And that's why they need to be able to shade match, find the same material, same composition, things like that, so they can create the same garment several times. But that was only one business who was able to do that out of the 8 people I interviewed. And the other businesses, they said that they still struggled with being able to replicate garments, and that retailers they sold to didn't understand the concept that because they are making the garments out of post-consumer waste, that they won't be the same. And they would question it. They would send the brand like, this doesn't look the same as this, or the same design, etc. And it's not a linear process like we think it is, in the sense that, yes, okay, the brands design the product and then they come to make it, but the making of it, the manufacturing of it, is very different, because you're not working with a flat piece of garment, you're working with a 3D thing that needs to basically be unpicked into a flat garment. But then again, you have to think about all the stains and all the seams, and everything needs to be taken into consideration. So it's a very creative process. And in order for manufacturers to adapt to working in this non-linear process, they have to be creative as well, and they have to be willing to take on board this very complex way of working. And it also requires collaboration between the brands and the manufacturers. So that also leads me to basically having to work with manufacturers who are local to you. So local manufacturing, which is a form of, I don't want to say sustainable, but sustainable way of working by not having to, bring garments from overseas and getting them done locally.
Yeah.
So yeah. Great.
I think the picture you're painting around upcycling being quite a messy process, non-linear, it sounds a lot like circular economy in general, right? We look at circular economy as a circle that's like kind of a loop, and that is very straightforward in that sense. But actually, I see it much more as a puzzle piece, where puzzles sort of overlap and shape each other. Yeah. I mean, when you were speaking about upcycling, then I thought downcycling. Those stretchy jeans that we might not be able to upcycle. How did they feed into that puzzle? And then what do they feed into? Maybe another channel of reuse or repurposing. So great. Thank you. That was fantastic. Well, then same question to you in terms of, what were the challenges in your case?
Well, actually, my research was focused on post-consumer textile waste and specifically in the reuse of textiles. So, yes, I found that there's like a main challenge about the, like the, I would say the industry's mindset because, yes, I think from the industry we know that we need to do things like differently, more circular, more sustainable in other cases. But when they connect, when we try to connect with consumers, there is a gap or is more like, for example, I was looking at the three-dimensional role of consumers in the circular economy, because as consumers we are customers, we buy, we are users, and end of life users. So consumers need to be taught about those three dimensions. But when I talked with the industry's representative, they were aware of what they need from consumers. But when I ask again, so like, okay, so what are the specific activities that you are asking to consumers? They were like, just buy and dispose. Well, how about the reuse?
Yeah.
It's like you have a lot of options in there, but we are more focused on upcycling, recycling, but not on how to develop reuse. So I think we need to change a little bit like our perspective and focus more in connecting with consumers. Also, start building a two-way conversation with consumers so we can get them on board.
100%.
And stop. We can nudge them and guide them to get like a more sustainable consumption. But it's really important also to build like to build capacity and to develop new skills so you can consume more sustainably.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we mentioned this, because something that I was thinking about quite a lot these days is the lack of sort of social scripts around how to do circularity, how to move the consumer from just the buyer into someone who, trashes something into the bin, to someone who is aware of what to do when they are, potentially done with a product or a garment, to know where to direct that garment, because we know that we hoard a lot as well. We have really good quality clothes in our wardrobes that just have no use, but they have so much value in them. But consumers are not used to being those suppliers into the chain, into that circular economy. So it's really great that you mention the role of the consumer changing and us having almost navigating in the dark at this point, because brands are not really engaging, educating, neither are governments really. Great that we're in an institution that is. So yeah, that definitely needs a push. Yeah. Okay. I guess my next question is around any surprises during your journey, and whether that's in the map, in your master's dissertations, or just in general during your master's degree as you sort of embarked on that journey around sustainability. Were there any surprises that you sort of found along the way? Do you want to kick us off?
I don't know. I just want to say that the course, the whole journey, it was really enriching. I can't tell like one specific surprise. Do you know?
I mean, course-wise, I think I came into the course thinking I'm going to learn specific things.
Mm-hmm.
But you come to realize that as you learn, then you also have to do research for your projects. And you come across so many things that you've never heard of or seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it really opens your mind and kind of tickles that creative sense in your brain that makes you realize actually like there's so much more that can be done that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then from my master's project, like from that perspective, I think in the process of upcycling, one thing that really surprised me was the labeling process they had for upcycled garments, because obviously legally you have to be labeling garments, and brands don't know how to label upcycled products.
Right.
Because they don't know what the garment is made of, the secondhand garment. It tends to be missing the label on them, the care label. So when it comes to labeling, they essentially label based on their experience of materials.
Mm-hmm.
And the one brand that I was able to interview, they essentially have access to technology to label the garment correctly, but not everyone has access to that. So how can we standardize the labeling process for businesses to upcycle?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like, we want to be able to keep that garment in use. And if they don't label it properly, when someone comes to reuse it or upcycle it or even recycle it, how will they be able to do it properly if they don't know what the material is made of?
Mm-hmm.
So having access to technology is obviously really important. But how could the government maybe help with that as well?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you said that the government isn't doing much, but there are a lot of initiatives happening at the moment that I've read on.
Not enough.
Not enough, 100%, 100% not enough. But I feel like even just doing something is better than nothing at the end of the day. But yes, it's not enough, 100%. But they've been, I think, trying with like, they've been placing donation bins around for recycling schemes and things like that, and testing them out. And they're also coming out with a lot of initiatives. But the problem with initiatives is that they're not legalized. Like, you don't have to legally comply to something. Whereas in Europe, now that we're not, I mean, we're still in Europe, obviously, but
European Union.
yeah, exactly. They've been applying legislations.
Yeah.
So brands have to be complying to these legislations, which are forcing them to rethink the way they work. And I think in the UK we lack that, and we need to be enforcing things legally for people to take action. I mean, thousands of garments end up in like the normal bins, like you guys were saying, in black bins and things like that, because there's not enough happening. And at the end of the day, yes, okay, we're the ones who throw them away, but we need to be provided with a solution that's easily accessible in order to simplify the process for consumers. But yeah, I think that was the main surprise for me, was the labeling process. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, not really, not that I can think of.
Yeah, but that's really interesting that you mentioned this, because there is lack of standardized practices in the fashion industry at large. That sort of means that there is little accountability for what's happening, which is obviously a problem. Did anything else come to mind?
Well, yes. The thing is that my background is in fashion design, so the whole course has been like new to me, like the content and everything. But yeah, in my research, I found that from the industry side, they were kind of advising on stop talking about environmental impact, stop talking about the technicality of circularity, but then the actual communication they've done has technicality, like technical knowledge about textiles, so consumers can, because they need that. That's what I meant with capacity building. You need to understand how textile works, so you can be part of, but they, like, in one side they were saying that we have to stop talking about that. We have just to make clothing like circular fashion more fashionable. But they are also communicating environmental impact and technical content about textiles because it's needed. So there is like those two paradoxes, and to me it was like more like, okay, So we need to make that kind of communication, that kind of content accessible to consumers. Like you have to translate that on what they need. So that then you have to segment to make a good segmentation on consumers' real needs and
that's where the marketing kicks in. Yeah, very much. Very true. And it's interesting because I am a marketer as well. And I always think about what is the role of marketing in all of this. And I think it has a huge responsibility, as well as those governments and us as consumers, but also marketers as those key communicators around, driving changes. And consumption is so close to marketing that I think, so great that you're pointing this out.
Yes.
I have another question then in terms of maybe kind of wrapping up slowly. If you had the power to change one thing in the industry and it could happen overnight and it would work, what would you do? What would you like what would you like to happen?
Stop using raw materials.
Okay.
For the whole industry. There is enough textiles out there, so just use it. Yeah.
That's interesting because obviously there is so much conversation around dead stock and how do we mobilize all of that? Yeah. Or how do we upcycle or downcycle or re-engineer products to make new products?
But we are still overproducing, over-consuming.
So maybe it's about consuming differently.
Yeah. Like from the industry and from consumers. Like just use what we already have.
And it comes from a designer.
Of course.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's great. I wish I could give you that power, but
I would love to have it.
I want to say for brands to be held accountable in the sense that we become like fully aware of how they work, and at the same time it makes me wonder, like, will that actually make a difference? Because we hear a lot on the news about brands doing this and that, unethical practices and things like that, but there's nothing happening. Like, I don't know. So I can't really think of something that I would want to happen overnight, because for me, not using raw materials in the sense, we'd have to obviously be using fashion waste and things that already exist, but to what point? And will fashion actually stop there? Or how will we keep reusing? How are we going to make that possible? We'd have to advance recycling. But recycling is advancing so slowly. And that's one of the main reasons I looked into upcycling, because upcycling holds the entire value of the garment, whereas recycling or downcycling downgrades the garment or, breaks it down and makes it into a new material. But that requires even more,
resources?
Exactly, resources. So it's a very tricky question for me, but possibly holding brands accountable and having them be fully transparent. And if that means that then they will question what they do, then obviously that'll be amazing and make them, rethink the way they work and their processes and everything. But at the end of the day, if they do this now, what difference will it make if we hold them accountable overnight? I don't know.
Yeah. Fantastic. Again, I wish I could just magically pass on that. That would be brilliant. I guess to wrap up, I wonder if you have any words of wisdom or anything that you want to share with fellow students, or anyone who's interested in exploring the sustainable, inverted commas, fashion industry. Any words of advice or wisdom?
Well, now I'm like feeling that I'm going to break that sustainability bubble, because I've been like for a whole year talking about this, and that's been just amazing for me because I know like the industry, how it works. I've been working there for 17 years now. So I know that something is waiting for me out there that I'm not going to like. But what I want to say is that we have to keep together, like, and keep sharing our thoughts, and because when we do that, we can hold that motivation and build something.
Yeah, it's again going back to that drop, you know? The more drops we have in that ocean, the better.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Natalie?
I think if I would tell a student, or even past me, would be enjoy the process, but also you have to be so organized. Because there's only so much research you can do. And you just need to be organized with the way you put it together. But definitely enjoy it and read a lot and take it all in and just try to connect the dots together. It's almost like a mind map in a way, or like those spider web diagrams. Like you read something here and you read it there, and then you start to connect the dots. Like you're kind of like the spider doing all the dots and connecting. So it's a very exciting process, but it's very time consuming, and it's also it takes a lot of mind power. So to any future students, just do your best, and there will always be more to do, but that's for another student to take on in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I always say that
I agree.
creating any new knowledge is very incremental. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we're just adding that incremental knowledge.
Absolutely.
So that's a really lovely message on an academic note. But both Laura and Natalie, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you and to learn about your passion and your projects coming out of that. I'm really happy to have people like you in the fashion industry and people like you going out in the world and making incremental changes. So thank you so much, both.
Thank you so much, Olga.
Thank you. Thank you.